All right, first things first, I like to start with what my transaction coordination company reports for their numbers. It's a super hyper-local look at what's going on in our market. So here's what they're reporting for this month. Currently, offer acceptance rate is about 46%. That's actually a really solid number. That tells us that about half of the offers that are made get accepted. So we like to see that. That's really good. Inspections waived, this is at 32%. That's actually down, which is great. So we're looking at number of waived inspections, which means that about 2/3 of people did get an inspection accepted. That's really good news because for a while we'd been seeing that one get skipped often by buyers in order to make your offer competitive, having to get rid of that inspection. Obviously a little more risky and less ideal. So that's a very strong number. This one's pretty interesting. So I'm going to show you another one here in a second, but they're reporting average purchase to list price. So if it's listed at 300,000, does it sell for above or below? They're reporting that to be about 2.4% over the list price. So that's actually not terribly high for this year. The metro numbers we're seeing are a little bit higher than that. So we love it. We'll take only about 2.5% over is a really solid number for the Twin Cities right now. As far as financing types that are getting accepted, now this one's really telling because the more cash there is, the harder it is for all the other finance buyers to get their offers accepted. Last month, they reported 12% were all cash offers, 74% conventional. I believe that's actually up a touch. And then FHA, VA, and other were 8%, 3%, and 2% respectively. So no dramatic changes there. Obviously, it's still very hard for FHA or VA buyers to get their offer accepted. I'm definitely encouraging a lot of my buyers to switch to a conventional loan if you can, just because it's a little bit more solid of a financing from the seller's perspective. So they're going to have a better chance of getting your offer accepted if it comes to a tiebreaker like that. Seller paid closing costs, 26%. This is actually the highest that we've seen since March. So that means about a quarter of the offers that were made included some of the buyer's closing costs getting paid by the sellers. So that number is going up as well. It's not significant. It's still less than a quarter, but we do really like to see that. About 5.8% of offers got accepted with a home warranty negotiated in there. Some of the time that's paid by sellers, sometimes it's by buyers, so not a significant number. And then about 8.7% is all that were contingent upon the sale from a buyer's property. So we've talked about that one a lot. If you've got a current home that you have to sell in order to buy, we do have options so you can buy non-contingent, because as you can see, less than 10% of the time are you able to get that offer accepted. Of course, that number isn't everybody that had a property. That'll include first-time buyers that didn't, but still a very, very low number we're seeing there. So now why don't we look at what's going on as far as the Twin Cities as a whole. These are our entire MLS Metro numbers that we're going to look at now. Now, you know I always look at month supply of inventory. This tells us if we're in a buyer's market or a seller's market and how that's fluctuating. Now on this graph you're looking at here, the lower we go, the more of a seller's market that we're in. We'd love to see these numbers up around 3 to 5 months supply would be ideal. Currently, we're sitting at 1.2 for the month of June. Of course, these numbers are reporting a month delayed. So June reports at 1.2. That's actually coming up for us, so we really like to see that. But typically, our year will be pushing towards a balanced market earlier in the year. So we like that we're seeing that shift up, but it's delayed this year, and it's holding down to more of a strong seller's market. So we don't really like to see that, but we'll take at this point anything we can get up from 1.1 the month prior. So next, we got days on market. So we're currently sitting at 7 days on market. Now that's about half if you look at those values from the previous years. Generally, homes are still selling more quickly during the warmer months, but we're about half as many as we would have had the previous few years. So where are we looking when we go into the winter with this kind of a number? It's kind of anyone's guess, but obviously we're not expecting that we're going to see those days on market jump significantly anytime soon. Pre-COVID, we would have expected those numbers to be around about 44 in the winter months, days on market. So even if we're at half of that, maybe we'll see 22 days on market, give or take, this coming winter. It's kind of anybody's guess, but really we're not expecting a big change in those numbers anytime soon. However, we should see it start to rise over the next couple of months. New listings coming on the market. Now this one, it's not a dramatic change. We did obviously see a big jump. You can see there from May to June. June had about 8,450 new listings hit the market. That's a good solid number. Typically we would have peaked a little bit earlier, maybe in May. Would be our peak. So we're still rising pretty significantly in June. That was a little bit unexpected for us. We'll see if that continues on, but I would imagine that this will probably have to have been our peak number. And then I suspect next month when I'm reporting July's number, I expect that number to come back down, of course, as we move into the school year and later in the year. Regardless, that's the lowest peak that we've seen. If June is our highest, that'll be the lowest we've seen since 2013. So been quite a while that we've seen that few new listings hit the market. We had been increasing in 17, 18, 19. 2020 was obviously very low. This year we would have expected our numbers to be higher. We didn't see that this year, but we'll see. I mean, it's still possible that July will outpace June, but I'd say it's pretty unlikely. Number of homes for sale, obviously with listings going down and us staying in a really strong seller's market, our number of homes for sale that's across the metro that's currently sitting on the market unsold, we're at 6,300 for last month. That's a nice increase, but it's still pretty low. We would normally crest around September. So if you're looking at those peaks there, if that's the case, we're only going to have about 1 or 2 months of increased growth on that home sale. So being as low as we are, we'd really like to be seeing it going up more significantly, more quickly. We did have a nice bump in June, but we're still very, very low for the overall number of homes that are currently on the market. I am seeing this shift. It seems like things are softening. Besides just the normal seasonal changes, we're expecting that our market should start easing up a little bit. So hopefully that number will keep going up for us. 6,900 is okay for a June, but we'd like to see a little more too. Median sales price. Now, this one is obviously going to be directly affected by being in a seller's market, things selling quickly, there not being a lot of supply. Median sales price is through the roof. So here's what, if you go back to 2018's peak, we were at 271 for a median sales price. 2019 was 290, 2020 we were sitting at 315. So those years we saw an increase from peak of the previous summer to the following peak of 19,000 and 25,000. Currently, so far, if we say that we've peaked now at June, which is fairly accurate, that we won't see numbers as high as we have. If the current numbers for June are at 350,000, and if that's our peak, that'll have been an increase of $35,000 since the peak of last year. So that's about 11% up. That's way too high. Actually, since January, I did the math. That means the average home in the Twin Cities has gone up $8,300 per month since July. A huge number. We certainly can't keep that pace. We will see those numbers start to dip. I would assume this is probably going to peak for June. But regardless, as we go into the winter, we will see those numbers slouch just a little bit. We'd like to see it slouch a lot, actually, because we just can't keep up that high of increase. But as we look into 2022, we're also not expecting numbers to come down significantly. And the last economist I just saw they're expecting about 10% growth through all of next year. So anybody's guess, regardless, we're up 35,000 since peak of last year, and that's a really, really staggering number. Finally, last thing I'm going to hit you with, and this one's actually most surprising that we just keep breaking the ceiling, feeling like we have a glass ceiling. We're looking at the percent of the original list price that the home sold at. So this is the one I referenced at our first set of stats. We just keep breaking records on this one. Prior to this February, which you can see is where we were at 100% last there, we had never gone above 100%. So that means if a home was listed at 300,000, 100% what it sells at 300, right? Last month we recorded, we were at 103.2, so that's 3.2% above list price. Currently we're now at 3.5 over the original list price, which is just staggering. I definitely do think we're going to see that one drop down pretty significantly. It normally does in the winter months anyways. Those are those little valleys in between you can see. But also I'm seeing a lot of sellers that are overpricing their home. They're getting way too aggressive. They're hearing of multiples, and so they're overpricing their home. It doesn't sell, and then they have to drop it, which is going to then push it down even further. So I do suspect we're going to see the market shifting on that one. I don't think that peak is going to last long term. As sellers overprice, then it's going to force that percentage down. So that's a wrap on your July 2021 real estate market update for the Twin Cities. Make sure you subscribe, and you can find my contact info down below, as well as a whole bunch more content for folks moving to Minnesota.